Welcome to Make Your Own Fun. I am here with Sophia Cacciola. She is a filmmaker, an actress, a musician, probably a ton of other things that we'll learn about too. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on. And I just have to say right off the top here, congratulations on the Once and Future Smash. I mean, you guys really hit it out of the park and you're scooping up awards here at the film festival. So how does that are you guys going on to more, or is that just kind of winding down now, or where are you guys in the process with that?
Well, we really just started. So we premiered at Fright Fest in London, and then Scream Fest for the US, and then right to Nightmares in Ohio. So that was like our first three, and now we'll be going around for probably at least 9 months or so. So we're going up to Morbido is this weekend in Mexico City. We're going to New York City Horror Film Festival, Be Afraid in Italy. There's a South African film festival. What else? Oh yeah, and the South Texas Underground, of course. So that's like it'll get us through the end of the year, and then there'll be more next year. So yeah, so it's really just ramping up right now.
That's awesome. So are you guys going to actually travel to all of them?
Unfortunately, all the international ones are kind of out of the picture right now just for cost because like we cannot afford
Right?
to
It's
do
just
that.
like
But we're going to be representing at South Texas and at New York City Horror. So
that's
we'll
awesome.
get the continental US ones hopefully.
So what did you guys pick up in LA? What categories did you guys scoop up for that?
Nothing at Scream Fest. Like, I mean, the screening was a present enough to us that we were able to bring out so much cast and crew for the premiere. So that was really, really great. And at Nightmares, just Michael, my partner Michael Epstein, and I won like an in film award for ourselves. So it's related to the movie, but more for us as people, which is also great. So
That's totally great. Yeah, I saw Neil's pictures
yes. Yeah.
all
So
over Facebook. So I was just like so happy for everybody because it's such a great cast and crew.
yeah, so Neil Jones is our producer. He does the Without Your Head podcast. So yeah, so he's
Yeah,
very
I've been on the
very
podcast. He's
excited.
great. I've worked with Trista, so
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, Trista's the best. Yeah.
so I guess starting from these lofty heights, we'll go back a few years in your Wayback Machine of choice. Could be a DeLorean or whatever you want to use. And so you're not originally from LA, right?
No, so I'm from like Western New York, but I moved to Boston at like 17 and I was like, I'm gonna do music in Boston because like it seemed like a big enough city for my
It's a
lofty
big city,
dreams.
yeah.
Yeah, I had a great music scene. I will give it that. It was not a city where like a lot of outside forces were looking at us. Like we didn't have our like Seattle moment where like everybody got like scooped up out of Boston.
What would be the equivalent of Seattle flannel in Boston? I don't know if there's because
I
that
don't know,
was such a
peacoats.
thing
I don't
out of
know.
Seattle.
There's a lot of goth kids in Boston. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it would be. Maybe that's the problem. We didn't have like a fashion statement that like
There was nothing that like outside sources could be like, oh, let's take our cut of the pie of this.
exactly. And I think I was just a little too late because that was like the early 2000s and like already the music industry was like falling in on itself, unfortunately. But I did that for a long time. I was just in bands. I was like a band
Yeah.
kid. So rock and roll.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I took a look at the site, and I have to ask because maybe I just didn't read things right, or I didn't spend enough time on it. But are all of those projects, those musical projects, still going, or was that kind of like an evolution from like the last like 15 years or so, 10 years?
I mean, nothing officially has ended, but nothing is still going.
That is the best answer ever.
I mean, it's not out of the question that we'll play a show of
Nothing
any of those
really
bands.
started, nothing really ended, but it's there if you want to download the music.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously the music still exists. I really want to start working on another record, and I don't know because like my main songwriting project for like the last bit of my time there was Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling. So that's what like I'm most personally invested and proud of, you know. So I really want to do another record, but I don't know if I would keep that name or not. It was kind of unwieldy. Like
Yeah,
it was
that
like
was
a full
yeah.
sentence, you know.
That was going to be my one of my questions about the music because there are so many projects and there is it's just amazing like just a plethora of music. If you were to tour, would you tour on just under your own name as like a solo performer and then you would just cherry pick kind of like everything from those past groups?
I don't know. Probably not as my own name because it's so complicated and it's such like an ethnic name like that I think it's hard for people to say.
Yeah,
But
but I mean, come on, it's better than like Jane Smith or something, you know.
sure, yeah, it's more Googleable for sure, for sure. Yeah, I don't know how we would do it.
Oh no, my picture died. Oh, sorry. I don't know what happened. I'm back. Um, so I guess take me back. And I think I watched another video interview with you where you said that kind of like making music videos kind of led into film.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I always had an interest in film, but like, you know, it's just hard to get into as like a 90s kid. Like we had like VHS camcorders, but like I had no access to like actual like 16 millimeter or even 8 millimeter film at that. It was like kind of that middle time of like what were you shooting on before like digital stuff got good. So it was always something I was kind of interested in, but then like I was so focused on music. And then we, you know, we worked with a few directors. So Michael's band first with Emotion Sick, which their music video did really well for this song called 30 Lives. And it like ended up in like Dance Dance Revolution and stuff. So like did really well. And so that was
Right.
encouraging. And then I met a director, Ted Cormie, who had done some other music videos around the scene. And I was like, I want to do a music video that's the opening sequence to The Prisoner, which is like a
Oh yeah,
1967
yeah,
British
yeah,
TV
yeah.
show. And like, you know, like everything, like the only way I get projects done is that like my crazy ideas sound easy at first. I'm like, it'll be easy, like whatever, you know, like it's just we'll recreate the video, like shot for shot. Like that sounds super simple, you know. It's not simple at all. And it took us like 2 years, and especially because we were doing something like 50 years old from another country, you know. And so like he went crazy. He like Ted did a really amazing job like finding the car because there's only like 20 of those cars in the US, and we found one like in Massachusetts, and you know, finding locations in Boston that looked enough like London. Like luckily Boston's kind of a copy of England anyway. So, you know, that was doable, but it took a really, really long time. But I was privy to like all of his spreadsheets because he's like a real director that like
He's
studied
like a
it.
real director.
You know, he like went to college for it and like studied
He knows
directing, you know.
like
So it was all about the pre-production. And like so I had like kind of a like an inside scoop on that part of it. And it like I really learned a lot working on that music video. And then after that, that like cost so much money, those two videos that were like, we can't as a band afford to do this ever again. So it was like, well, let's get a little Panasonic like point and shoot camera and just go out there and start making our own stuff. And that's really how it started.
that's why so many bands that you see, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can go, you know, even current bands like when they started off, like even like the Arctic Monkeys, it's literally them just filming themselves in their rehearsal space because they're just like, we have $50. Like
Yeah.
this is like to just film it and get it up on MySpace back in the day. But I have a
Yeah.
really weird analogy for you because you're talking about The Prisoner, and I kind of feel like maybe it's not like a widely circulated show here in the States for reruns or whatever on streaming, but I kind of feel like people who know that show, they're all like creative people. They're all like people
Maybe.
who watch that show and obviously other things too, but they're like, I want to do something like that. I'm going to be like a painter. I'm going to be a musician. I'm going to be a director or an actor. And the analogy, I'm sure you've heard it a million times, is like back in the day, not everybody bought like a Velvet Underground album, but people who did were like,
Started bands. Yeah.
right. Is that, I mean, do you find that when you talk to people about like The Prisoner, it's like that person across the room at a party where you're talking and they're like, well, you know, it's like you know, whatever, and I wasn't feeling good. And so there was like a marathon on like The Prisoner, and you're
Yes.
like
It's like
you
it's definitely
find that person.
it's its own little cult for sure. It was very hard to find for a while. I think I first watched it like as like a bootleg. Bootleg. But yeah, you know, it's a show that like even though it is like very 60s in a lot of ways, it's so thematic and the visuals were not of any time period. So it's like so visually interesting and they're like the props and stuff that they made and created for it like really stand the test of time. And like, so I think like weirdos really respond to it, which, is good, and there's just like a lot to mine there in the themes and the visuals for sure.
I remember I don't know where I was, with just like one of those things where you get like a bunch of people together and like only know half the people. I don't, might have been like somebody's cookout or something. And I remember I lost somebody trying to explain like Patrick Magoo, and I was like, well, you've seen Braveheart. Well, the guy from Braveheart, and then the person was just like, I,
You
not.
got to start with Ice Station Zebra to really get people into the Patrick McGowan.
Right? Otherwise, they're just like,
Gone. It's gone.
they're
No.
totally gone.
Yeah. He's
So
such an
tell me about
angry,
like
weird man. Yeah, I love him.
so tell me about some stuff like when you were putting together like videos and maybe like working up to the first feature film where you saw stuff either going on in music videos that were being aired or by things that other people were doing. Now, I don't know if you were like cherry picking of other things or just like growing up and remembering things for videos. So, um, what I guess the question I'm trying to ask is um, the leap from music videos to the first feature, are there things that you feel like when you were making the videos that you were like, oh hell yeah, now let's just throw everything in the kitchen sink and let's just make a movie?
Yeah. Well, I guess like through doing that, like not that we got great right away, but we
Oh
were
yeah.
shooting and we were editing. So we had like enough of that under our belts. And then like so there's a movie theater in Boston called the Brattle, and it's been there forever. It's in Cambridge. And they had like a trailer competition. So like make a trailer and we'll show it at the Brattle for like a movie that doesn't exist. And it was their 10th year doing it. So we did a trailer called 10 based on like 10 Little Indians, like the Agatha Christie story. And like and we made it with a bunch of our friends. So like we were very plugged into like the arts community in Boston, not just music, but like the poets and the burlesque community. And it's like it's small enough we kind of knew everybody. So when we made that trailer, we made it with like, people around, and then they were all like, let's just make this movie. Why not? And so that's really like we jumped from doing like a couple music videos and this fake trailer. I don't even know if we'd ever even done an actual narrative short film yet to being like, all right, let's do it. And we did a Kickstarter. And because like we were in bands and all the people were part of the community, like people gave us some money and we raised like 20 something $1,000, which was
Wow.
enough to rent a mansion in Rhode Island. And we made this movie called 10. And it's definitely like a first film. Like we learned a lot, like you can't have 10 minutes of dialogue. Like we learned that,
I've done that
but
mistake before. Oh, I've been burnt
yeah.
on that. Where
But
you're
I
like
think,
when you're writing it, this is me writing it. When you're writing it, hit the space bar with my chin, and you're like, this is genius, and you're like with your friends, and you're like
yeah,
talking, and you're saying the lines, and then you're rehearsing it, and you're filming it, and then you try to cut it, and you're just like,
yes,
this is interminable. Like the world has died a
yes.
death, and it's just like. And like I think you were saying in another interview that I saw where you like the short ended with dialogue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was like it ended with like a 10-minute monologue, which, it was amazing that our actor could do it.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
They did it very well, but it's just so boring,
Right,
like
right.
now.
The audience was
But,
like,
the movie was fun enough for what it is. And, it got out there, like it got distro and it went to festivals. And like, again,
yeah.
it was like enough encouragement that we're like, let's do it again. So it like, it just snowballed from there.
But I know what you mean by like trailers into films because I'm sure you've seen Grindhouse, right?
Yeah.
Tarantino and Rodriguez. And so I remember watching that with the fake trailers in between. And I know they eventually made a movie out of Machete, but I remember watching those fake trailers going like, why didn't they make these movies?
Exactly. Like don't, right? Like why did they ever make don't? Yeah.
Oh my God, that was Edgar Wright, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That
Yeah.
was so great. So good. Don't see this movie. So good. So I guess what do you guys think you learned from the first film on a technical level? Because I have to imagine like I've directed some stuff, but I've never like attempted to go out in the world with like a bunch of equipment and like tell people where to set things up with lighting and where the position of the sun is and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So How was
Well,
that?
luckily, we brought on a friend of ours who's a really great photographer, Kelly Davidson, and she had never shot a movie before, or not, maybe not even video at that point. But she was a really good photographer. So she definitely helped on the lighting aspects because she knew how to light, people. So that was great. And then we kind of learned like what what is the video part of that, like kind of together, like eye lines and like that stuff. Um, and like we bought like a bunch of like work lights at Home Depot and just like threw them around, and like we knew sound was really important, and luckily coming from music we brought in a friend of ours that could do like decent audio, so we kind of like they weren't like movie professionals, but they were like music and photography professionals.
Right.
So like we kind of lucked out in that regard, that like we didn't just go in there with like nothing, and knowing totally zero. We knew like a little bit more than zero.
Let's point it over here. Let's see what happens.
Exactly. Yeah. So like at least we got like good images.
I'm always curious too, on other people I've interviewed in the industry that, and it sounds horrible, but of like the stories where maybe things weren't planned and then you had to kind of improvise or just like make something happen on the day. So I'm kind of curious if you have any stories about like being like out of the location and either like the sun's going down really fast and you have to like just figure it out really quick, or you lose a location, or you get all the way out to some secluded location and it's like dilapidated or not nearly what you thought it was in the picture. So I'm kind of curious if you have any funny stories like that.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm sure I do. Like that's every day on set on a low budget movie. It's like you show up and nothing is how it should have been.
You're like, where's the farmhouse? And they're like, oh, that was torn down in 1987. You're like, shit.
You're like, oh great. I was planning to use that.
Some,
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
know. That's everything. Yeah. But I feel like, like one thing that does work in our favor is we're not too precious about what is in the script when you need to make the day. So it's always like, well, if this thing doesn't work, or like we can't get this special effect to work, maybe we can do it later, and let's like get everything we can
right.
and keep it moving. Because I've definitely been with directors where like once a little thing goes wrong, they don't know how to keep it moving, and it's just like there's no time for that.
I
You have to just
believe the word you're
pivot
looking
and
for
keep
is
going.
precious, right? Precious.
Exactly.
They're like, oh my God, have you ever heard the story about oh God, what's his name? Michael Mann when he was making Last of the Mohicans?
No.
Oh, precious. So he's pushing his crew, right? And they're doing like these because a lot of that stuff was shot at night, right? And so they're doing like these 14-hour days, whatever. They had that fort, where the British are attacking or something. And and he was just a total dick to his crew and just ripping everybody a new one. And then finally, I guess, been filming for so long and he was so like deliriously like cuckoo land or whatever that he was like, and will somebody turn off that damn light over there? It's ruining my shot. And then somebody came
It's
over
the
and it was
sun.
AD. He was so worried about losing his job. And he was like, Michael, that's the sun. And he was like, true
Yep.
story, true story. So I'm kind
I've
of
been there.
curious, like you were talking about, having to kind of change stuff in the day. Do you find like when you're casting people or maybe people that you've used more than once on projects, it's so beneficial to use people that have great improv skills?
Yeah, to a point. Like we usually like we allow for some improv, but it's also like if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it every time. If
You
we're
gotta
gonna
sell
make
it every
an
time.
edit out of it, so if it's like something that comes up in the first couple takes and we're like, all right, keep doing that, like that kind of thing. But usually like, we try to prep our actors and be like, look, this is how we're gonna shoot it. And a lot of the times we're gonna do long sections of a scene, because like that's just gonna keep it moving faster. So like we expect our actors to know the script when they come in usually. And I'm definitely fall into that. Like if I've worked with you before, you're first in my mind for a role, which, because like on these low budget movies, like if someone's cool, that goes a lot farther than like trying to find the next great person.
Oh yeah,
So,
you're like, if I'm gonna be stuck up in a cabin in the woods with some jackass, this is gonna be never ending. But if it's somebody that I can just hang out with
yeah,
for
yeah,
2 months or
exactly. Who I know
whatever,
is going to be chill and not make a lot of demands. Like, it definitely goes a long way with us. And I think that's why people work with the same people over and over again. It's like, well, I know this person, I know they can do a good job, and I know I can hang with
oh yeah,
them.
you don't want to
So,
be up in the middle of nowhere and somebody's like asking for three different kinds of shampoo or something, and you're like, what?
yes, exactly. And the people that do make a lot of demands don't get cast again.
Right? Um, so when you are filming, do you ever have kind of like editing ideas in your head, or is it pretty much like you're just that's months later and you'll cut like when you're like at home and like done with filming?
Yeah. Well, like I think over time, like, Blanche, sorry, my dog's barking. When you shoot more, when you edit more, you kind of get a sense of like what you need when you're in the scene. And I don't love doing a lot of shot lists because like on a low budget thing, once I get to the actual location, it's not going to be anything like what I thought in my head as a shot list unless I have something really, like, come here, you, really specific in my mind. Who are you barking at? This is our barker.
Aw.
Uh, so like when I'm there, I'm always thinking like, okay, I've got this close up. What's going to cut with that close up? I need the opposite, or I need, a wide or a medium that's going to bridge the gap between this special effect and this close up. So definitely it's always being edited in my head. And then like whatever happens later happens later. I just want to make sure on the day that we get enough that's going to cut. But yeah, that's always going on for sure.
Very cool, very cool. Um, I'm also kind of curious, like when you are like looking for projects, it sounds like maybe more of them as your career's kind of gone on, that like more of them and more of them have just come from people you know and like networking and random conversations and working on other projects. That seems to be like how it goes, where it's like just having a conversation during like a mealtime or something, and somebody's like, oh well, so and so's got this great script and they're looking for crew and they're gonna start filming like 2 weeks after your thing wraps, and it's just like a light bulb goes off, right?
Yeah, I definitely like it's definitely like what like for our own projects, it's like what is the cheapest thing we can make right now? Like what resources are falling into our laps? Like with the Once and Future Smash, like Neil got us access to a convention, Mad Monster Party, that we could shoot at. So like immediately we're like, okay, well that's a big piece of the budget. So like that we could do now very cheaply, that'll make this movie. So, stuff like that where it's like, okay, I know I have XYZ. So like that's enough for me to go do it. But definitely like when I work for other people, I think it's usually like a lot of like, oh, I'm thinking of doing this thing. I'm like, all right, I'll come shoot it. Like I'm around. But yeah, so it is a lot of talking to people over beers and whatever, like film fests and at other events, being like, well, what are we doing next? Because like we
Yeah,
all want to
I'm
always be
sure so many
working.
people come up to you and they're like, Sophia, I have this great story. And you're like, fuck. And then they tell you, and you're like, yeah, so we'll put a pin in that. And
Well, if it's somebody else's script, I'm like, do you have some money to make this happen?
most
Because
people don't.
people
Most people
somehow think
don't.
I have a lot of money and I do not. So
Right?
I
That's
have,
the hardest thing I think in this town, honestly, is just trying to find producers.
yeah, finding anybody with a little bit of money to throw it. Because like no matter what, and no matter how cheaply I'll work or anybody else will work, it still costs a little bit of money to get a location,
Well,
to
yeah,
get
people have to
costumes,
live,
wardrobe,
you know?
food, all that stuff. So, you can do it cheaply, but it's never zero anymore.
No, and I think and you know this too, like people are just so much more committed and like will jump in with both feet if it's like, can you at least like feed me and give me gas so I can get to and from the location?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so when you were starting out as an actor, do you have any crazy stories about I guess coming to LA? I always love the stuff that some of the stuff that I went through where it was just like, yeah, somebody told me about this talent agency, and they're running out of the back of a karate dojo, and they say if you can twirl a sign. I'm like, that doesn't sound like the commercial audition you started telling me about. And they're like, oh, well, it's still that. I'm like, I don't really think it is.
Yeah, it's still acting. Yeah, I haven't actually done much acting at all. So like I've acted in like our own stuff and friends projects, like stuff I don't really need to audition for because they know me. Which so like I've continued to do that, but like not even that much. I went
Oh,
on a
you're like in your own movie, like snarky girl number two getting coffee or something.
yeah, like I'll be thrown into shorts or whatever. Like especially like if it's something just Michael and I are making, we don't have to deal with another person. Like that'll be often why he gets cast in my stuff and why I'll get cast in his stuff. It's like, well, I don't
Like
have to
you
drag
can
another
rely
human
on
being.
them, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I do a little bit, and I've gone on a few auditions here, but it's like never been fun, and it's just like not a thing like I want to fight for out here, especially like I'm not 20 anymore. Like I'm just like whatever. I'm just a weirdo, so it's like not often what the casting wants, but sometimes I'll do background because I find it so fun.
I've
Like
done it. Yeah, I've done
it's
it.
like people there are insane and they think it's going to lead to something else. But like I'm looking at the camera and I'm like, oh, the camera is like 100 feet over there and I'm here. So I know I'm like a blurry plant. Like
Oh
it's
yeah,
fine. Like I
yeah.
get it.
Oh yeah. I've told
And
people too that that they're like on the fence about doing background. I'm like, well, it's easy money. It's not a lot of money, but you got to go into it thinking like meal times are the times to talk to people, find out who's working on a short, find out who's doing a student film, find out who's gonna go off in the woods and make a horror film, and hopefully it's a film. Um, and but it's like so many people, they're just so content with being human furniture. And I did it for a while, but it's like I didn't come to town to be like
right.
expensive background. Like I want to make stuff, you know?
Yeah. I just like to fill in days here and there. Like, all right, I get the text. I'm like, all right, I'll go sit in a cafe for a day and
Oh
get
yeah.
paid.
But
There's
I've
no
talked to people,
delusions, about
right?
what it
The thing
is.
that sucks about that stuff, and I'm sure you've been through it too, like back in the day, like when I was with Central Casting, was like, my God, if you forget to take a new picture and you got a haircut or did something or dyed your hair, they're just like, they can't. And I'm like, oh yeah, I suck. I'm sorry. I should have taken new pictures. And it's like, but sometimes they don't call for a while, and or you
Yeah,
don't
I
hear
forget.
anything
Yeah.
on the hotline or whatever, and you're like trying to get into some crazy show. So,
They
yeah.
finally got online. It took the pandemic, but it used to be you had to always go in to their office, which is like outrageous, in this century.
It was like the
Yeah,
DMV. Do you
it
remember
is.
that?
You line
Oh
up.
God.
Yeah, it's horrible. So like, yeah, they finally like got into this century.
That's great. So have you worked, and hopefully this is like a good kind of story, hopefully, where you either it's a project that you've worked on for somebody else or you yourself have like directed or been the DP on where you cast somebody for like a five and under part and then they were just like so amazing that like the next project you had, you're like, you got to come in and like read for the lead on this because sometimes that does happen where like that diamond in the rough. I mean, it doesn't happen too often, but sometimes I've heard like really cool stories where people are just like why are you just coming in to read for the five and unders? Like, oh well, and they're like kind of meek, like, oh well, it's just a hobby.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Like I definitely I love working with Anastasia Elfman and like she just responded to like a Facebook post like we just needed like somebody to play my friend in like this short. And then like I just loved her so much. I was like, I'll put you in everything. So like I always like try to find like a little role for her whatever I'm doing.
That's
Sometimes it's a big
awesome.
role and sometimes it's a small role, but I'm like, oh, like that's great for her. And it's like I always have her at the top of my mind. Like, we're gonna sneak her in now. Yeah, and, I'm always building up like that repertoire of like actors I like to work with, and like a lot of them are in the Once and Future Smash. And so it's like definitely and like I'm not always going to be able to give them like the biggest role. Like our friend Mike King, we did a short with him called Sitting Duck with the director Aaron Brocas. And when it came time in Smash, I was like, well, I need a news anchor. And it's like, 3 lines or something, but like he had a lead role in Sitting Duck. And now I'm like, well, come do this, just come over to my house in a green screen. And it's like, these people are always in my mind, and he did, and it's fun, because he's cool. So
Yeah, and then the way I would rationalize that is like it might be 3 lines, but it's 3 lines in a feature film.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then it's like the more you say yes to me, the more you're in my mind
Exactly,
for the next
exactly.
thing where I need, somebody that looks like you or like somebody I can trust to come and actually do a thing.
Right.
I'm surprised how flaky people are that say they want to be actors, It's like actually getting them to do the audition and show up to set, like with some people is like, very difficult. So it's like the people that are reliable and show up on time and are good, you keep them around for
Are the
sure.
people that like think they're gonna fail upwards and like be a lead and that they're gonna be with like A-list movie stars or something. It's like you don't start off being a millionaire. Like you
No,
got to like do some shorts and work your way up. But you said
yeah,
something interesting that I was thinking about how Facebook Instant Messenger has really become the networking of like everything.
yeah,
Like
it's
I
true.
know you have a website and people have websites and stuff and like you can reach out on their websites, but for whatever reason, like it's just becomes this thing where that's the go-to.
It's funny because it's like both like Facebook is dying and young people don't use it, but also it is like one of the only places to easily contact somebody or easily post like a casting call or a job thing, like so, and people do see it or they do at least recommend people. So it is still very useful in that like Craigslist kind of way. Like, or like Craigslist doesn't exist anymore, but like I need like a photographer for this thing, or like I need an actor to show up tomorrow. Like Facebook is the fastest way for me to find somebody. Even though like people say it sucks and it's dying, which it does and it is, but like it's
It
still
is, but I
useful.
mean, versus like Instagram or whatever, it just seems like, for stuff for online or short films or features or any kind of event, it just seems like that's just for whatever reason, people have their phone and so they get the notification and they're like, oh, hey, cool.
Yeah, I'm there.
Um, so I guess what is next for you guys? What's around the corner?
Oh my God. Well, we're touring with the Once and Future Smash, which is good. And we're trying to find a home for that. Like, now we're just like starting to reach out to distro and stuff. So we'll see where that ends up. And then we're just trying to figure out if that makes any money back, if we have enough money to ever make another feature film. I hope so. And hopefully like we'll get a producer on board to actually like put in some
Yeah,
funding into something. But yeah, we got a couple of scripts kicking around. Probably something a little more serious, I'm hoping. Like, 'cause we've done so many comedy. I love comedy, but like we've done so many funny movies that it's like, I want to get back to a creepy movie or like a witch movie or something. So hopefully, this time next year, maybe I'll start shooting my next feature. And I just shot a feature film for Jason Horton called Craving, and we just wrapped on that. Like I know he's almost done editing, but we were like shooting for so long. He's been editing it the whole time. So I think that's just going to come out early next year is
nice.
the plan. And it's like a creature feature. Everybody dies in a bar.
Oh, that's cool.
It's really fun. Hopefully I'll see it. But I had a lot of fun shooting it. So yeah, so things are coming down the pipeline of like stuff. And if you want me to come shoot something, anybody that's listening, let me know.
Very cool. Yeah, I always find too that leading into Halloween, it's like I don't know why. It's like you would think that this is the time you would ramp up to want to film like creepy stuff, but between
No.
like the beginning of November and like the beginning or end of February, it's like a ghost town.
It is. I was always saying that to somebody recently. It's like I always think I'm never gonna work again from like November 1st to like February
Like even
28th.
shorts, right? Like
Yeah,
shorts, you
nothing
would
is
think like
working.
something you can film on a Friday through a Sunday.
Yeah, no,
And
but
you're just
like,
like staring at your phone like,
yeah, is anybody ever gonna call me up? But like May to the end of September, I'm always like jammed. So,
do you think
we
it's the
like
weather? Do you think it's the weather where it's like you can be
well,
outside and film like in parks and
like we're in LA, we can do like I mean, I'm from the
I
East
know what
Coast,
you
so to me
mean.
this is
Yeah.
warm. It's still warm out.
I don't know if
I
it's
don't
like
know. The
a
holidays
school
and stuff.
schedule or something,
I don't know. Yeah. We actually have shot like 3 out of 6 of our features in December because that's like a downtime for us and like for a lot of other people. So like it works out for us. I don't know why other people don't do it.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised like January and February, like the holidays are over. What what is the holdup, you know?
Yeah. What is anybody doing? Yeah. I don't know.
Have you ever thrown like family and friends into a film and just like given them a line where they're just like, I want to be in your movie. Like, do you even know how to act? Like, really? Like, all right, fine, just be that person walking over there or whatever.
I forced my mother to be in the Once and Future Smash, but it's not that she wants to do it. She just like I don't know. Like you just gotta trap her. I'll be like, Mom, sit in that chair and say this line to me. But she actually is really funny. She's like very dry, very dry read on things. And then like we have like a bunch of nieces and nephews that act, and like they're like, oh, put me in a thing. And I'm like, but they live on the East Coast. I'm like, someday we'll put you in a thing.
Unless you're gonna do it like this and you just film them.
Yeah, over Zoom.
just like that, or you just have them you like do like a FaceTime thing and you just record their side of it, you know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Before they hit the big time of indie horror.
So yeah, I know that you're big into the horror. So are there any other genres that you want to tackle that you haven't tried yet besides horror?
I love sci-fi, and we made a sci-fi film, like a time travel thing called Magnetic. It was our second movie, and it like has by far done the worst of any of our movies because it's like it's a slow, like very sci-fi thinker of a movie. But I just think like even science fiction with like millions of dollars budget, like they still somehow need more money or something. I don't know. Like
I know what
it's
you
like
mean. I
it's
know
the
what you mean.
hardest genre to do cheaply, I think.
You
So
can't. You can't.
I don't
It's
know.
hard. It's hard.
I'll watch anything set in space. I love it all. Even when it's bad, I still love it. So that would be like the genre for me. But I don't know. I like weird mysteries, like the Giallo stuff where it mixes like horror and mystery, murder mystery type stuff. So like that's all, like also in my brain for maybe a next project. So like less like slashery, more like murder mystery. Yeah.
Like I thought about writing a sci-fi script that kind of set in a like a Highlands, like Scotland or England, and then I started watching Andor, and I was like, oh fuck me, like
They just
oh
did.
it's so good. I'm like this is like Blade Runner in Scotland or something. This is like you could do it, but it's like when you see it done on that level, you're just like
Right. You're like, how do I do? I feel like that way with like I like cheesy action movies, like especially like the 80s action stuff. But like you can't really do that, I think, without stars.
yeah,
Because it's
it's
just
tough.
or
It's tough.
without like a really good like kung fu guy or something,
Or
like
like the buddy
just looks
cop
bad.
movie, like that. Buddy cop movies are great, but it's like if those two people don't have amazing chemistry, your movie
Yeah,
dies a death. So they have to both be funny and then funny with each other.
exactly. Yeah, like there's
So
some movies that you just like need that charisma of like a star. Even if they're not a star yet, but like they should be.
I know, I know. And then sometimes it's like you watch an older movie, like an independent movie on streaming from a few years ago, and we know a lot of stuff between like 2019, 2020, 2021 got lost in that release shuffle with COVID. So like I've been finding stuff, that I've never even heard of, and I watch it and I'm just like, man, this is so good, and it never got any exposure because it just got dumped because of COVID. Like I honestly think like the movie Prey, the Predator prequel,
Yeah, yeah.
if that had come out in the theater,
They
people would
should
have
have,
lost
yeah.
their mind.
Yeah.
And
But
it's
yeah,
great.
I think people are still slow to go back to the theater. And I also think it's just because of the money right now. Like nobody has any,
Nobody
you
has
know?
any money.
So it's like, how do you justify like going to the movies every week, you
We got
know?
to plan to win the lottery.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I'm just like looking, like I go to the gas station and I see like the Powerball and stuff, and I'm like, didn't like one person win like 800 or something last year or whatever? And I'm just like,
One guy in Indiana. Yeah.
one guy. All right,
Spread
well,
it
this
around. Yeah. Well,
it's been
if he's listening and he wants to, use some of it unwisely, we've all got movies
uh,
ready to go.
shave off a couple 100 million, send it
Yeah,
away.
sure.
Well, we're gonna wrap it up here, and I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. You were
Thanks for
awesome.
having
I knew
me.
you
Yeah.
would be. You're great. Looking forward to nothing but amazing future projects from you. And I guess just if you wanted to just plug your website here, where people can contact you about trying to find you and book
Sure.
you.
Well, our production website is called Launch Over. It's launchover.com and then sophiacacciola.com to find me directly.
That's so awesome. Okay, well, enjoy the rest of your night, and thank you again for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, have a good one.
Good night.
Bye.